Have you ever seen the global rat distribution map? Because it's intriguing. I saw it and I felt intrigued. As you can see, there are rats everywhere on Earth except for the Arctic, Antarctica, a few remote islands, which you would expect, and Alberta, Canada, which you would not. Just that one province, though. Why wouldn't Alberta have rats? But let's start with an even simpler question for you non-Canadians. What is Alberta? I recently heard it referred to as the Texas of Canada, which is not, it just doesn't feel entirely inaccurate. This is how they voted in our recent election. Alberta's got big farm, big truck, cowboy stuff. Lots of quaint little town names like Frog Lake, Beaver Lodge, Dewberry, Forestburg. The crux of Alberta's economy is the oil and gas industry. They are very patriotic about their oil and gas industry, which is definitely a culture shock for me coming from hipster Toronto. The only time I have ever been to Alberta in my adult life was last November. I was there because my short film was playing at a festival in Calgary, so I was there for a few days, and then I went up to Banff for a few days with my family, and it was very beautiful, very fun, very fucking cold, very terrible for my skin, and my nose bled every day, and I had to start buying $20 moisturizer. I am not built for that kind of cold. I am a weak shit Toronto hipster, and I accept this about myself. But, you know, very, very beautiful, very fun. That's my SparkNotes version of what Alberta is like. And you know what else? I didn't see any rats while I was there. What did they do to the rats? But before we go any further, a word from this video's sponsor. Do you have some musty old mattress that smells weird and has no back support? Well, I don't. Thanks to this video's sponsor, Helix. Everyone's different, everyone sleeps differently, which is why Helix has their sleep quiz to help match you with your perfect mattress based on your body type and sleep preferences. If you sleep with a partner, you can take the sleep quiz together and find something that's the perfect compromise for the two of you. Based on my results, Helix matched me with this lovely mattress right here, the Twilight Luxe. It is their firmest mattress. I generally do prefer a firmer mattress. Helps with the scoliosis demons that live in my spine. But the Helix lineup offers 20 unique mattresses, and they just launched a line of mattress toppers as well. There's the Dual Comfort mattress topper, which is a great option for couples with different sleep preferences. The Ergo Align mattress topper, which is a great option for those with lower back pain. The Premium mattress topper and Premium memory foam mattress topper, which are both great options for anyone looking to add pressure relief to their hips and shoulders. And you don't need to have a Helix mattress to use the Helix mattress toppers. You can put them on any mattress. So maybe if you don't have the budget to upgrade your whole mattress right now, the toppers are definitely still worth looking into. I have had my Helix Twilight Luxe for 3 years now, and I still really like it. I'm sleeping great, so is my partner and our two beautiful baby Binguses. And if it makes you nervous to buy a mattress that you haven't tried out in person, don't worry, because Helix offers a 100-night sleep trial. You can sleep on this baby for 100 nights before you decide if you really love it. There's a 10-year warranty, financing options, and flexible payment plans. And the best part, of course, is that Helix delivers your mattress straight to your door, and shipping is free within the US. The mattress comes rolled up in a box and then expands once you free it. It's super easy to set up yourself. Just make sure you read the instructions before you try it. Don't do this. I don't know what this is, but don't do it. The mattress turned out okay, thankfully. She wasn't hurt by her traumatic birth. So if you're in the market for a new bed, remember to go check out Helix. They have a rather excellent Memorial Day sale on right now. It's 27% off site-wide and a free bedding bundle with any Luxe or Elite mattress. Click the link in the description down below or scan the QR code on screen if you are so inclined. Thank you so much again to Helix for sponsoring this video, and now I return you to that regularly scheduled video. According to the Government of Alberta website, Alberta is proudly rat-free. This means we have a zero tolerance for rats. There are no permanent populations of rats, and we do not allow them to establish themselves. Sometimes a few hitchhike into the province, and we deal with them quickly. Why is it important for Alberta to stay rat-free? Rats are an invasive pest that pose a risk to human health, property, and the economy. They can consume and contaminate crops and food, spread dangerous diseases to people and other animals, damage buildings and electrical wires. How do we stay rat-free? We stay vigilant. Many groups work together to ensure we retain our status, including Alberta's rat control staff, pest control officers, farmers, landowners, and municipalities. Awesome. That's still kind of vague, though. I want to know the true details. To fully explain how there are no rats, I need to tell you a little bit of history of the rat. The species of rat most commonly found in North America is Rattus norvegicus, the brown rat, according to Wikipedia, also known as the common rat, street rat, sewer rat, wharf rat, Hanover rat, Norway rat, and Norwegian rat. You know, Rat. The archetypal rat. What makes these rats unique is their ability to live off of humans. So, like raccoons or like pigeons, they're some of the only animals that are able to thrive in like a solid concrete city environment. They can crawl inside human structures for shelter, they can eat almost anything that humans throw away, and no, rats are not native to Alberta, but they're not native to anywhere in North America. They're not native to pretty much any of this, but because of their ability to live off of humans, they've been able to infiltrate pretty much every part of the world that humans have. It's a common saying that rats are the second most successful invasive species after humans. Part of the reason for that is that they reproduce alarmingly fast. Following about a 3-week gestation period, 12 to 18 rats are born to a female rat that can be as young as 8 weeks of age. A Norway rat can produce up to 12 litters per year. Norway rats may live up to 18 months in the wild. It has been estimated that under ideal conditions, a single pair of Norway rats could produce 15,000 offspring in a year. Once you have rats in a human settlement, it is almost impossible to get rid of them. Rats are thought to have arrived in North America for the first time by stowing away on human ships from Europe around the late 1700s. But recall, rats need to live off of humans, so they couldn't just spread freely throughout these ecosystems where they had no natural food source. They certainly would never survive somewhere like Alberta without humans' crops and garbage to munch on and structures to spend the winter in. They needed to follow people. And Europeans didn't really start settling in the Canadian prairies in massive numbers until the beginning of the 1900s. Then it absolutely exploded. What happens next may shock you. And this is because the Canadian government was giving away land on the prairies to European immigrants for basically free, for almost nothing. And this kind of idyllic cottage core lifestyle that was sold to them seemed very appealing, especially compared to the hardships of life in Europe around that time. And yeah, it needs to be said, they stole all that land from the people who already lived there. So, early 1900s Europeans began moving to the Canadian prairie provinces en masse. They built towns and farms, and so the rats descended. By the 1920s, they were populating Alberta's neighboring province of Saskatchewan. Rats were found in Alberta for the first time in the year 1950 on a farm near the Saskatchewan border in a town called Alsace. And that fateful rodent discovery was made by some officials from the Alberta Department of Health who were studying sylvatic plague. Yes, the plague, like the medieval one. Despite its strong association with the medieval era, the plague does still exist, even in North America, generally in the form of sylvatic plague, which is what it's called when it infects wild rodents. So like prairie dogs or squirrels. It generally doesn't have very severe symptoms for them, but it is the same bacteria that causes the plague in humans. It's just called sylvatic plague when it is in rodent rather than in human. And coming in contact with those rodents or fleas that have bit those rodents can still transfer it to humans, at which point it's just plague original flavor. But it rarely happens these days. Most people live in cities with good sanitation. There's a lot of education about not touching wild animals. Scientists carefully monitor infected rodent populations and immediately isolate any human cases, so we are mostly plague-free. According to the CDC, the United States' yearly plague cases are approximately 7. Canada does not have any public data on our yearly plague cases. We may not have any, for all I know. And if you do happen to get the plague from a prairie dog in New Mexico or a lab accident in Illinois, oh my god, that guy's life sucks. It is largely treatable with antibiotics. I know, that's seems like a pretty anticlimactic downfall for a disease that once killed a third of Europe, but the plague is largely treatable with modern antibiotics. There you go. But we are talking about, this video is about the Alberta Rat War. So there's just so many tangents associated with the Alberta Rat War. The year is 1950, and you are the rodent plague studying scientists in Alberta, and you have just seen your first rat. A farmer in the area soon dies from something very closely resembling the plague, but there was never an official diagnosis made. He died too quickly. He was apparently a fur farmer. He was raising mink for their fur, and he was sometimes feeding these mink wild rodents that he caught. The evidence is there that this man probably got the plague from a wild rodent or from his mink, who he also infected via the rodents. Sylvatic plague coming from prairie dogs and other wild rodents is one thing. But rats, say it with me, are unique in their ability to live off of humans and to live with humans. Rats could theoretically spread the plague much, much faster and farther. The first treatment of the plague with antibiotics was in 1945 in an Italian city called Taranto. It was highly experimental. Honestly, they threw a whole bunch of things at the wall trying to treat this plague outbreak. They made a really bad vaccine that didn't work. Results were mixed. The mortality rate from this outbreak was still around 50%, which is not good. However, we got better at treating the plague with antibiotics, and in the following decades, general mortality rate from outbreaks went down from around 60% to only 10%. So that was good. But you're the rodent guy in Alberta in 1950 and you don't know any of this is gonna happen yet. As far as you know, you've got a good reason to be concerned. You sound the alarm to the Alberta government, and the Alberta government agrees. Rats would be bad. Surveying their beautiful rat-free land, Alberta discovered that they had many natural defenses against their enemy. To the west, the Rocky Mountains, far too high and treacherous for rats to cross. To the south, Montana. The whole area around the Saskatchewan-Montana border, it's a wasteland. Nobody lives there. It's just flat plains forever. The rats cannot cross such a distance with no food sources. To the north, boreal forest. Beautiful. Freezing and also very sparsely populated, cannot support rats. Once again, returning to the global rat distribution map, you will see there are rats in the northern Canadian provinces, but I assume that's meaning like in the major cities up there, and that there is a large enough space of freezing cold land where not very many people live. The rats cannot make their way down into Alberta. Alberta is vulnerable to the rodent menace from only one direction. Saskatchewan. Fucking Saskatchewan. They establish the rat control zone along the problematic portion of the Saskatchewan border. Alberta's rat control zone, a phrase I will never tire of saying, is a 600-kilometer long, 29-kilometer wide stretch of land that runs from Cold Lake in the north to the Montana border in the south. And it has defended Alberta against rats for 70 years now. There are 7 municipalities that bear the great responsibility of being along the rat control zone, and they all have their appointed inspectors who regularly patrol the area for rats. But let's back up for a moment. The rat control zone. What exactly does rat control mean? How do they control the rats?
How the heck Alberta did that, truly.
Yeah. Fences? Small fences?
I hope not mass killings.
Unfortunately, that's correct.
No!
A big problem that they faced in conducting this rat genocide was that they relied heavily on the vigilance of everyday citizens who lived in the rat control zone. And most of those people had never seen a rat because there were no rats in Alberta. But if they were going to keep it that way, they needed to educate the public on what is a rat, and why do we hate it, and how do we murder it? They ran an all-out smear campaign against rats. The Alberta government had them officially designated as a pest under the Agricultural Pests Act of Alberta. This was war, you see. This meant not only that the government was able to mobilize to murder them ruthlessly, but that every citizen, were they to see a rat, had the obligation to their province to do the same. According to Alberta's website, preserved rat specimens were distributed to Alberta agriculture offices to aid in the identification of rats in the 1950s. They held rat control conferences, they distributed tons of pamphlets, posters, put them up in schools, railway stations, post offices. And at first, it didn't really work. In the fall of 1951, 30 rat infestations had been confirmed along 180 kilometers of Alberta's eastern border. By 1952, rats were active along 270 kilometers of the border. While most infestations were within 10 to 20 kilometers of the border, rats had penetrated 50 to 60 kilometers westward in 3 areas between Medicine Hat and Provost. They've penetrated the rat control zone! This is not a drill! They've penetrated the This was very bad and not good. Clearly, a handful of farmers who had never seen a rat before were not doing the job in keeping them out. So the Alberta government hired this insane exterminator from Manitoba by the name of Napoleon Poulain.
You know, I talked to some people, that had met my grandfather. They said, your grandfather, he had a unique interest for pest control. My grandfather raised rats. He had live rats, and he tried the different powders and experiments on them.
He was passionate about it.
He was very passionate about rats, yes.
And killing rats wasn't just his business,
It was an opportunity to avenge a childhood vendetta.
And at that time, he wasn't allowed to have a puppy. And somewhere he was able to find a puppy and he kept it in a grain shed. And he would look after it. My great-grandparents didn't know he had this. And then he came out one morning and found the puppy had been killed by rats.
This particular photo is from when they clubbed to death all of the rats in a landfill, but there was all kinds of creative methods of rat murder. Between 1952 and 1953, the Alberta government spent around $150,000 having arsenic powder blown underneath thousands of buildings in the rat control zone. So there would be this poisonous arsenic powder in all the cracks and crevices in the buildings that rats might try and use as shelter. Many residents were not told, or were told specifically that it was only toxic to rodents. So naturally, a lot of people's pets and livestock got poisoned by accident. If there was any human cases, the Alberta government didn't put it on their website. Consequently, the poison-proofing program was discontinued because the arsenic poison was too dangerous and the cost considered too high. However, the program apparently was effective. Most infestations were confined to areas within 10 to 20 kilometers of the border. So there you go, for the low price of $150,000 and a lot of accidental arsenic poisoning and hiring the Hannibal Lecter of rat murder. They had got the rats in check. And you know how I mentioned that under the Pest Act, every Alberta citizen had the obligation to fight the rat war, to exterminate any rats that they find on their property. Yeah, Alberta took multiple people to court over that. They seriously enforced this zero tolerance policy for the rats. They ramped up the anti-rat propaganda. They started working with the Saskatchewan government as well to try and improve their rat control so that ultimately less rats would make it across the border into Alberta. But still, the first 10 years of the rat control program were not easy. In 1955, so only 5 years after the first rat was found, there was almost 600 infestations. It would seem an impossible task to keep the rats at bay forever. But then, in 1959, something happened. Those infestation numbers finally started dropping, and in the following decades, they absolutely plummeted. And this was thanks to a lot of things. There was innovations in pest control, aka mass rat murder, but also innovations in rapid communication, which allowed inspectors to respond faster, better sanitation and garbage disposal, as well as changing farming practices that were less hospitable to rats. And 70 years later, Alberta is still considered rat-free. It is home to the only major cities in the world that don't have any rats. And to make no mistake, the rat war is ongoing. The rats continue their relentless assault on Alberta to this day. Today, rats in Alberta are only allowed to be kept by universities, research institutions. I can speak. Great. Institutions and zoos. It is illegal for private citizens to keep rats as pets. Not even the fancy breeds, okay? This is very serious contraband right here. If I haven't made it clear yet in this video, I am a rat enjoyer, okay? As you can see, I decorate my titties with a rat image. I like them. I like seeing them on the Toronto subway. They delight me. They can ride the subway with me. I don't have any crops to destroy, okay? I'll be friends with a rat. All of this is just another strike on the list of reasons why Alberta is my personal hell. But is there really no rats in Alberta? Zero rats? Zero rats ever. I mean, I've already said that there's some like research institutions and universities and zoos that are allowed to have rats. So there's some rats in Alberta. Officials will readily admit that there's always some rats in Alberta. They make their way past the rat control zone by hiding on vehicles all the time. As their website states, rats are known to hitchhike. They recommend that you always check your vehicles for hitchhiking rats if you've been out of the province.
Rats can get into province. I can't stop them from getting in. Albertans are very proud that we are rat-free, and I have a lot of pressure with my job.
So when they say that Alberta is rat-free, they don't mean it's 100% rat-free. They just mean it's free of established populations, and that they are dedicated to keeping it that way.
The Rat Patrol, which goes from farm to farm hunting the rodents down.
Although, in 2012, a large infestation in the city of Medicine Hat actually threatened Alberta's rat-free status. But have no fear, the rat murder squad arrived, armed with various types of poisons and traps. They surrounded the city dump with poisoned hay bales, which they dubbed Operation Haystack. They set up high-definition cameras to track the rat movements. They set a bunch of snakes loose to eat them. It took them 2 years, but they did eventually eradicate all of the rats in Medicine Hat. The continued success of the rat control program depends on your vigilance, Alberta citizen. Because here in Alberta, we love oil and boot and rat murder. Just last year, a campaign was launched called Rat on Rats, and their logo is so delightful. It's such a cute logo for mass rodent murder. Rats are one of the most destructive invasive species in North America. Alberta remains the largest rat-free jurisdiction in the world. We are asking for your help to report observations of rats and any damage they may have caused. You can email rats@gov.ab.ca if you see anything suspicious. They even have a Rat on Rats coloring page that you could do. I'm just imagining some little child coloring in the lines of the words, "Kill him." And people do rat on rats, by the way. The whole rat-free thing, it's like a weird point of provincial pride for the Albertans. The rat control people get hundreds of reports of rats from concerned citizens every year. The only problem is that Albertans still don't know what a rat looks like. They are snitches, but they suck at identifying rats. They report so many innocent muskrats. In a 2015 interview, one Alberta rat inspector said, "We even had one lady earlier this year who called to tell us she had found an extremely large rat in her basement. It turned out to be a small beaver." This, I assume, is why the Alberta government has whole pages dedicated to how to identify rats, and rodents commonly mistaken for rats. Yeah. Don't drag the northern pocket gopher into this. He didn't do anything wrong. In conclusion, this week I saw the global rat distribution map and I really just had to know why. And it turned out that I also learned a lot about the plague and that Napoleon Poulain existed. And it was pretty fun. So I thought I would share the fun with you. I'm having a lot of fun with this green screen also. I don't know how long she's going to stick around as a character on the Strange channel, but we're vibing for now. The rat war is eternal and never-ending. It will go on so long as rats and Alberta exist. And, you know, if I had to wager on which one of those things is going to exist longer, it's probably rats. Unless those scientists from New Zealand actually do figure out how to use CRISPR to stop the rats from reproducing. I don't know, we'll see. Only time will tell where this weird and wacky world of ours that includes rat wars will go. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in another Strange very soon.